While it is normal for board gamers to want the newest, greatest, shiniest thing, we often forget that there are a bunch of really great games that have come out over 10 years ago. And that's what this list is about. This is a top 10 list of the best games that are 10 plus years old. And in fact, just because I like you, I'm going to give you two top 10 lists, one of my own and one of the Room and Board community, and make your guess how many games in the top 1,000 on BoardGameGeek you think are from 10 plus years ago, because it's actually more than I thought. I feel like with BoardGameGeek, and especially with it skewing towards complexity, there are a lot of games that I figured would have pushed their way onto the scene, especially with board gaming becoming more popular and people rating Kickstarter highly or whatever. BoardGameGeek isn't the be-all and end-all, but it's a nice reference point. There are 416 games, approximately, I just took it by these numbers up here, in the top 1,000 games that are listed as having come out in 2014 or earlier. Yes, unfortunately, 2014 was 10 years ago. And that number sort of skews about the same as you move on to the top 2,000, where you have 841, again, approximately. Perhaps my math is incorrect, but it's around that number, or perhaps exactly. 841 of the top 2,000 games are also 10 years or older. And so we do this fun thing over on the Patreon. We all like to share our lists, and then the great and incomparable Vault Boy puts it all together, puts it in the spreadsheets, and makes sure that we know what the aggregate of that list is for the Room and Board community. And this one, I didn't get my friggin' act together to participate in the list, although looking at this, I don't think it would have skewed things that much. One of the games might have gotten a little bit of a bump by me adding it in, but pretty much the community list and my list is completely different, which is something that I quite enjoy. Now, a caveat to my list before we begin. On my list, I am not including any titles that are on my personal top 20, because I've talked about those before, and if you missed them, well, hey, congratulations, you've got another video to watch after this of even more great games to satiate your gaming tastes for as long as you like. So let's get started with the community list. Starting at number 10, we have Legendary Marvel, a deck building game. And if you stick around to the end, I'll blaze through all of the honorable mentions, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of games mentioned, so stick around for that. But we have Legendary, a Marvel deck building game. This is in the Legendary system. It is a game where you choose a mastermind. The mastermind will pump out villains out of this villain deck, and you have to deal with them with heroes from the hero deck. This plays a bit similarly in terms of a tower defense style game, as you attempt to withstand the onslaught of all the different Marvel villains that are coming your way and come out on top. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of the Legendary system. I have more experience with the Legendary Alien game than I have the Marvel deck building game. I think it's okay. It's not something that I would be actively excited to return back to, but I understand why people like it. It's a solid, mechanically sound deck building co-op game set in a fun theme. Who doesn't like to be a Marvel character? If I asked that question 10 years ago, it would be everyone. Actually, when did Avengers come out? Was that 10 years ago too? 2012! Yikes. We old. So yeah, that's the number 10 on the community list. My personal number 10 is a game that I haven't really talked about that much on this channel. I've mentioned it a few times on the R&R show that I do over on Rahdo's channel, but that is the board game Season. Seasons is on Board Game Arena. I think you should play Seasons on Board Game Arena. I don't own a copy of Seasons because I have played it too much on Board Game Arena. It also says that it's 2 to 3 players, and the poll results should objectively speak for themselves, where 72.8% of people say that you should play this with 2 players. Absolutely, I wouldn't recommend playing it at any other player count. And I am a certified expert in Seasons. It is the game that I've played the most out of probably any game ever. And whatever number you're thinking of, I have played more than that. Seasons is a great game if you love drafting. You're going to start out with 9 cards and you draft them back and forth against your partner, and then you're going to set them out for each of the 3 years that you're going to progress through. See this little time tracker? That is the Seasons track. Right here you can see there's winter, there's spring, there's summer, and there's fall. And you're going to go around this track 3 times. and the person who has summoned the cards with the most points and also gotten the most crystal points, because you can get them throughout the game using this to score, is going to be the winner. If you like drafting, if you like dice rolling, every turn you roll a bunch of dice and then you choose which dice to get. It'll pass back and forth. There's a great deal of randomness to it, in the sense that you have a strategy, you can have a plan, but it sort of all revolves around you getting more cards. And sometimes the dice will roll that you can get more cards, and sometimes they won't. And so figuring out how to navigate that and how to get yourself more cards is something that I find very, very fun about this game. So yeah, that's my personal number 10, Seasons. I think I've maybe worn myself out on it, again, having played more games than the number you're thinking of. But yeah, a really solid game that I would happily play a 2-player game of any time. Really, really great, especially if you're playing with somebody who knows the cards as well. You can just really bang out that draft super duper quick. Solid game. Go check it out. The community number 9 is, should have been the community number 5. It is 5 Tribes. And 5 Tribes is a really good choice. I haven't played 5 Tribes enough to be able to put it on my list. I don't have a copy of it, but a friend of mine has a copy. Honestly, this is one that I would happily play with my friend next time I'm over. My friends Matt and Dave, who have been on the channel, they own a copy of this. And this takes a mechanic that I am severely horrible at, and it makes it not as overwhelming. It's the Mancala mechanic, where there's all these meeples that are on these tiles, and you're going to pick up that entire group of meeples, and then you're going to drop them off one by one at different spots. And wherever you sort of end up, that's where you get to do an action. And so for me, it's really hard to figure out how you ever get anywhere and how you can set yourself up to do anything, because somebody's going to drop another one down there. It's just going to be ruined. This is a game where you can just sit and look at the board forever, or you can just accept that you're never going to be able to figure everything out and slap those little meeples around the desert to your heart's content. Really solid choice. Yeah, I just took a little review to refresh my memory of it. Took a look at the little review from Dan King, the Game Boy Geek, and it made me excited. It made me want to play this game. Oops. The idea of trying to strategically maneuver so that your clusters of meeples are in the same spot, so that you can drop down your last meeple of the same color, take them all off, and then trigger the ability of it while also retaining control of it. There's a lot of things going on in 5 Tribes. I think it's a really good pick. So that's the number 9. My personal number 9 is a game that I stopped playing on BoardGameGeek because I was getting too good at it, and that's Solkin. Solkin, the Mayan calendar, is known for its little spinning wheels of gears. It's a worker placement game where the longer you wait, the better a thing that's going to happen to your workers. These workers have been placed there, but then the tiles will turn, they will be moved up, and the higher they go, the more resources you can get. Now, one of the main issues with Solkin is that there's one strategy that feels very strong, and that is this spot number 2 strategy over on this yellow gear, where you can turn goods into corn, and then just sort of spamming the conversion rates up here to get as many goods as you can, convert them all into corn, and then put out more and more workers, because every single worker that you put out costs you money and costs you corn. This is a game where you have to feed your people, which generally frustrates me in games, but maybe now that I'm a better gamer, it frustrates me less, because I understand the penalties and the restrictions imposed upon these sorts of things. But it's just such a slick idea that I haven't seen replicated in a lot of things. I think one game recently, Arborea, I think did a similar thing, if I'm remembering correctly. But I haven't seen that idea of delaying your workers and waiting for things to happen, and that pre-planning aspect, plus shifting everything up, is super duper fun. The idea of either putting down workers or taking them off to activate and timing that out is really, really neat. So that's my personal number 9. Number 8 on the community list is going to be Roll for the Galaxy. Oh, sorry, looking at my list right now, apparently 5 Tribes and Roll for the Galaxy were tied at number 8, both getting 15 points and being on 3 different lists. How we score the points is wherever it appears on the list, you get that many points. So 10, you get 1 point, 1, you get 10 points. And then also, if it's on a particular list a certain number of times, you get bonus points equal to the number of lists that it's on. So if it's on 3 lists, you get 1 point plus 2 point plus 3 point. They get a little bit more weighted as you go on. If you're interested in our scoring system of how we calculate these, Roll for the Galaxy is another great pick. This is my neighbor Yuval, one of his favorite games. It is very similar to Race for the Galaxy, hence the same name, but this one is a dice game. You are going to roll all of your dice behind your screen, this little screen right here, and then you will reveal them and choose which ones to activate. Which 2 to activate? It'll depend on what number of player count you're playing with, but you'll choose which one to activate. You'll also put dice down below these symbols, so even if you don't activate them, if somebody else activates them, you can use the efficacy equal to the number of dice that you rolled. So if I rolled 4 diamonds and I didn't want to activate the diamonds because I think you're going to activate the diamonds, I might activate the circles, help you activate the diamonds, and be able to use those 4 diamonds to create a development, a 4-scale development. Again, this is a game that can go really quick. This is a game where you need to just search through the bag of tiles to try to find something that will give you points. There is that little bit element of randomness. I prefer Race for the Galaxy a little bit more personally, but I think this was a fun one, and it's nice to see it on the list. So that's the community number 8, tied for number 8. My number 8 is another worker placement game. It is Last Will. The idea of Last Will is very funny to me. Your wealthy uncle has died, and your wealthy uncle has died with all of their millions, and they're only going to give those millions to the person who can spend it the best. And so you're given a certain amount of money, and you have to spend that as quickly as possible. So instead of gaining points, you're essentially losing points. You want to throw extravagant parties and spend all the money faster than your opponents. You want to buy a house that's nice, trash it, and then sell it to the market for very, very cheap. It's sort of a 2-stage game. The first element is you're going to be bidding on how many cards you get to draw, how many actions you get to take, that's that little action thing at the bottom there, and how many workers you actually get to place. Over here, you get 4 actions, but you only get to place 1 worker. Actions are used to activate cards, activate different abilities. So I think that's interesting. This also determines the turn order as well. So the earlier on you go, the less your benefits are, but you will have access to those really important cards. And so it becomes a game about bidding. The turn order becomes so important in this game because there will always be these really accessible and very powerful cards that you want first, but you also want to delay. Like, who wouldn't want to get 2 cards, 2 additional placements of getting stuff, and 3 actions? It's huge. Everything matters. The turn structure is so tight, and it's a very, very funny theme as well. Last time I played this was, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and I played it with new gamers too, and they all sort of glommed onto it pretty well. So yeah, definitely would be happy to play this game anytime. Moving along to the community's number 7, or number 6 rather. My counting in these is always going to be off. No, it is the community number 7. So I guess they were tied for 9. Who knows how we're scoring this thing. Community number 7, we have Raw. Raw, I've talked a lot about. I think it's an incredible re-implementation by 25th Century Games. Like, it was fine before, but let's get some... Let's go back and see that cute photo. The addition by 25th Century Games is truly a magnificent addition. Like, the production design is so good. Raw is one of those games that is so tight. You think it's a push your luck game, but it's really just a bidding game, an auction game. You only have these 3 sundials to bid with, and that's it. You're going to put one of them forward, and if people don't outbid you, you get all the tiles in the middle, but that suntile goes away, and you have to take whatever trash somebody else bid with earlier on. There's such a unique flow of, okay, I'm going to call Raw because I know you want things. And am I calling Raw just to make sure you take it? Or am I calling Raw because I really want that thing and I don't want you to overbid me? Timing out when to call Raw and when to go on a run is integral with this game, and it's just really good. Super solid game. That is the community number 7. Highly recommend. My number 7 is Terra Mystica. came out in 2012, was followed up by Gaia Project, and now there is a new version of Terra Mystica that came out called the Age of Innovation, which it takes all the lessons that they learned from Gaia Project and applies it to Terra Mystica. I certainly haven't played this one, but I have played the base game, and there is so much depth still to the base game. I prefer this one to Gaia Project, although I know people are mixed. I think it's just because I've had more familiarity with this and I've played this more times. Gaia Project is also fantastic, but I like that this one feels a little bit more cramped on the board. The board feels a little bit more cutthroat. You'll take the role of one of 12 factions. They all have different asymmetry, and they all want to sort of colonize this land and make it their own. However, like any good faction, you know that you can only build on spots of your preferred land type. And so you then have to spend time terraforming the land to turn it into a type that is habitable for you. Now, the other thing about this terraforming and the structure of this game is that it's designed for you to build next to each other. Because if you build next to each other, or if somebody builds next to you, you actually get a little bump of power in these little bowls of power that we can kind of see on the screen. You'll move from one to another, and then from the second to the third, and only when it's in the third can you use that power to spend on advantages like these that are listed across the bottom of the board. Spend 4 power for 7 coins, etc. You're trying to build up your infrastructure, trying to get the most points, trying to time it out in a way that lets you capitalize on the start of round bonuses. This Euro game is so slick, so chunky, and rewards really good gameplay. There is no randomness here. It is entirely player-driven, and it's such an elegant game that deserves absolutely to be in the top 25 on BoardGameGeek, which I think it is. I think it's 20. Oh no, it's 28 right now. Oof. It doesn't deserve that. It doesn't deserve that paltry place. It deserves to move up 3 more. Yeah, Terra Mystica, if you haven't played it, it is a chunky game. I don't really enjoy it at 2. This is one where you'd want a larger player count to play it with. However, that increases the learning curve, right? So I think 3 would be good if you're just trying it out for the first time. 4 is nice, and 5 makes the game board just so cramped. But it is really cutthroat in terms of resource management and area control. Mwah. Beautiful, delicious. And speaking of delicious stuff you want to drink, why am I doing that accent? Because we're going to the Italian vineyards. Viticulture is our community number 6, appearing on 4 different lists, garnering 15 points. Viticulture is a really good game, and it's one of those games, I've talked about this a little bit recently, but I'll say it again since we're talking about it. Maybe you didn't see that video, and if you did, well, I love you the best. Viticulture is one of those games where everybody who's like a hardcore gamer, oh, I gotta go to the Essential Edition. I was wondering why it was so low. Yeah, you want the Essential Edition for sure. Viticulture is a weird one because it had Viticulture, then it had Viticulture Essential Edition. Well, it had Viticulture, then it had a bunch of little expansions that had Tuscany, and then it took some stuff out of Tuscany and put it back into Viticulture, but not all of it. So then you have the Viticulture Essential Edition, and then you have the Tuscany Essential Edition, and everybody talks about essential expansions for the Essential Edition, which is Tuscany, the Essential Edition, the Essential Expansion, and the existential crisis of overall these name changes. But Viticulture works really well just as a core worker placement game. You don't believe people when they say you need the expansion. It definitely adds some complexity if that's what you're looking for. But if not, this is still like a really nice worker placement game where you are cultivating grapes. You have your own little vineyard down here where you will be adding different fields, different grapes to your fields, and then harvesting those grapes to then age them and turn them into great wine, which you can then sell in the winter stage. There's essentially a spring and a fall stage, or a summer and a winter. I kind of forget. There's a summer and a winter where you can place workers out and get stuff. And the key here is that you want to spend all your workers in the summer, because then you don't have them back for the winter. So you have to balance out which workers are going to work. Although thematically, I guess, they just work in the summer and then they take a nice long break. Then they get the winters off. Yes, because it's here at the wine culture, we give our workers their vacation time and they deserve it. Really solid worker placement. A lot of worker placement games here, I guess, crossing between the two lists. But that was kind of the norm back in 2014. You know, worker placement was pretty huge. Maybe deck building was huge. Well, not really, because Dominion came out when? 2008? You won't find Dominion on either of these lists, and rightfully so, because it's just fine. Dominion came out, yeah, not that Dominion. I was right, in 2008. So we weren't seeing that much of deck building since Dominion sort of pioneered that, right? If we were thinking back 10 plus years ago, we're thinking more along the lines of we see some bidding and we see a lot of worker placement and we see a lot of Euro games that are at the top with Terra, Mystica, etc. But we're going to go over to my number 6, which is not Raw, but it is another Reiner Knizia game. It is Tigris and Euphrates. Tigris and Euphrates is currently out of print, and I have it with me, actually. I brought it with me because my friend wanted to play it and try it. I'm away currently in a different place than my normal studio, but I brought a bunch of games to play, and Tigris and Euphrates is one of those games that was requested. Oh yeah, and Raw, back right there. See, the old games, the old guard still lives on. But Tigris and Euphrates is a very tactical game. If you're looking for a game of tactical intrigue, this is it. And this sort of pioneered what is known as Knizia scoring. The premise of Tigris and Euphrates is you are expanding kingdoms. You have 4 leaders who all want to gobble up their own color of points. You have a water leader who's... This could be... You know what this should be rethemed as? This should be rethemed as the Avatar board game. I think it would slap, although no, it probably wouldn't, because I think it would require a little bit more investment than perhaps the average Avatar fan would want to engage in. But you have like this blue lord. Well, that's not a blue lord, it's a castle. Don't worry about that. We have this blue lord over here who wants water tiles to be placed in his kingdom. And if you do place them there, he will get a water point. You'll have the red lord, the farming lord, who wants farming tiles placed in their kingdom, and then they will get a point. Or the green lord, who's probably the farming lord, but let's call them the merchant lord. They want green tiles placed in their kingdom, then they get a point. And so you're balancing out, you get 2 actions a turn, you're balancing out all what to do and where to place it, but the key thing is that your points at the end are the points that you have the lowest of. So really a lot of the game is focused around, there are middle sections of the board that you're going to be competing over, which will give you wild tokens, wild resources. And so being able to get those wild resources really will help when your tally's a little bit down. It's essentially a set collection game. You're just trying to collect one of all of the 4 different types, and that gives you a point. If you have a set of 4, is another way to think about it. But anyway, that's enough about the scoring. I just like the scoring. I really like the tactical nature of this game. I find it very tense. I find it exciting to have the random tiles that you're drawing from the bag. I find it exciting to be able to move your people around. If one area is getting stale, you can move them to another one. And I like that there is a battle, that there are battles when 2 kingdoms get linked and there are 2 of the same lord in there. They're going to battle it out, and you use tiles from behind your screen to do that. I think it's a fun game. Definitely worth checking out, but it also isn't worth purchasing right now if it's out of print. People were like, oh, I need to go out and get it. It's amazing. It is amazing. It is really nice if you like a tactical head-to-head game. My partner, who likes more Euro games, doesn't really like Tigris and Euphrates. Like, she'll like Viticulture a ton more. But yeah, it will be reprinted at some point. The license won't expire. It says in the description, known by many as Reiner Knizia's masterpiece. That's not going to not get reprinted. Come on. Just wait for a new reprint. And honestly, hope the 25th Century Games does it. Although the Fantasy Flight Games one was pretty good as well. We're moving on to a tied number 4, but I'm going to give it to the thing I'd like least first. And that's Magic the Gathering comes in at number 4. Well, let's call it number 5. Magic the Gathering, which was 1993, got onto at least 4 lists. Oh no, 3 lists, but it was up very high on those lists, giving it a total of 20 points. It's the same as the number 4, 3 lists and 20 points. Super high up. And I understand a bit why. I understand that collectible card games are insidious and they get under your skin and you play a lot of them and then you hope that your time wasn't wasted. And so you say, yes, of course I had fun. It's my favorite. And you try not to look under the bed where the monster's living for you. But other than that, I also understand the appeal of Magic. Magic has been around for so long for a reason. People continue to play it for a reason because, well, because they keep making cards for it, I guess. I don't quite know what the reason is. I've only played Magic once or twice, and I thought it was okay. I don't really like the idea that you have to fill your deck with X amount of lands just to be able to play things, and if those don't come into your hand, then you can't play things, but if you put too much in there, then you're just going to be drawing lands and then you lose. Like, that to me seems like a pretty big flaw in the game. But maybe that's just because I'm a stupid idiot baby and I'm not like Barren Wasteland who's ready to destroy your lands. I think CCGs are more just like gambling. Like, you're opening packs, you're cracking them open, trying to get rare cards so that you can sell them to some other sucker who really wants to win and can't contain their own competitive nature and so has to purchase the good cards instead of, you just having fun with the game. But what can you do? Magic is such an institution in terms of board gaming, and I understand why it's on here and why people like it. I mean, I still don't, but, it's kind of the thing that you have to say. So I'm going to move on to my better pick from number 5, and that is a game that came out in 2014, Istanbul. Istanbul is a game all about optimization, action optimization. You're going to have these 16 tiles that are, very blurry. So let's get a better photo. There we go. These 16 tiles that are out here, they're shuffled every time, so you don't know the order in which they're going to come out. And that's very key because that's important to making sure that the game is fun. You shuffle them out. You'll start in the town square, and on your turn, you will take your entire stack of workers and you will move somewhere with them. You have a set amount of movement points. Generally, I think it's 2, but then you can upgrade it to 3 or 4. Or you can do sort of one-time moves in them. Doesn't matter. When you get to that spot, you're going to take actions. It's often like get all the certain resource, get a bunch of money, exchange resources for points. The first person to get like 5 points, 5 red gems, wins the game. It's just a really nice optimization puzzle. There's some slight player interaction as well in terms of blocking, because if I go to a space where your person was already, so if you went there on your last turn, I'm going to have to pay you money, so I'll have to pay you a penalty. And so if you can see where your opponents are going and you can race to get there first, they're more likely to pivot and go do a different strategy than pay you money, and that's also kind of an exciting part of the back and forth nature of Istanbul. Now, the community number 4 is a game I really did not expect to be on here because I think it's a good game, but it's not one that I expect would have staying power, especially with a lot of great party games out there. I mean, it's 16 years old right now, and people are still talking about it and enjoying it and making different versions of it. That's Dixit, where you have these cards in your hand and you are going to say a phrase. You might say, "Look in my belly, I'm having a little puppet show." And then everybody is going to add a card to the row. You're going to shuffle up those cards and then reveal them, and everyone's going to vote and try to get your card. Now, if everybody gets your card, or nobody gets your card, you don't get any points and everybody gets points. So you're trying to make it a little bit nebulous so that somebody else will be chosen. Because also, if you were chosen, if I said, "My belly is a puppet show," and I did not have this card in the top right, and you put that in, well, you would get a whole bunch of points because everyone would clearly pick you and nobody would pick me, who was thinking that these chickens were coming out of this person's belly, right? Like, for whatever reason, I made that my thing. Or maybe here, my belly is a puppet show. Maybe I was going for these fish, right? And I just wanted to talk about, I don't know. It was a bad example for a reason so that you would know. Like, instead, I would say maybe the beautiful sadness of time, right? I might say that as my pick. And like, you could look at this, maybe it's that, right? Maybe it is the lines that are coming out of somebody's hand. Maybe it's this of all this food going to waste. I mean, it was this one, and so it was probably a bit too obvious still, but you see the idea. You want to do this storytelling nature. I think Dixit, the art is so good. There's so much going on with the pictures, and that's what makes it really exciting. And it's got a very low weight and complexity. And every time I've played Dixit as like a real gamer, you know what I mean? Like, I played it before I knew what real board games were, or before I knew what Catan was, right? I played Dixit before I knew what Catan was. And I probably played it very close to when it came out. And every time I've played it now, knowing a lot about board games, I actually have enjoyed it as well. That it is surprisingly enjoyable, kind of like Mysterium, and that is the community number 4. Moving on to my number 4. Ooh, I'm really excited to talk about this one. Well, of course, it's my number 4. This is another bidding one. We've had a lot of bidding ones. This is the cover of the copy that I have, but you will probably find it on your shelves like this, and that's good because it got a reprint in 2023 and absolutely deserved to be reprinted. I think this game is really good, but the core of this game is all about bidding. This isn't the WizKids version. This is the version that I have. You're trying to get points, and essentially you will bid twice. You will bid first on this round of what structures or things you're going to add to your little area, and then you will bid. Then you will have the action phase where you can buy buildings or buy different favors, all in pursuit of fulfilling these goals. You're going to have these profession cards. You can get more by, purchasing them. Everything costs you an action. And with these profession cards, you need to have a certain number of things. You need to have one of these 3 symbols. You need to have the building that they want to work in somewhere in your unit over here, and you also need to have like their preferred landscape to get inspiration from. Essentially, you're bringing in all these artists and all these painters into your house so that they can create beautiful works for you. And you can complete one of these works once per turn at the end of the turns, and you can reveal them and get points based upon what you've completed. And also, the person who gets the most points, well, they get a little bit of a bonus or whatever. So you're incentivized to hold on until you can really have a massive turn and complete a bunch of stuff, or just try to keep on completing as much as you can each time. It's a really good game. Like, the bidding element, the auction gets to be so tight, especially because money is so valuable. And what's a really fun trade-off is that you're going to get money for completing all these works, but you also can then turn that money into points. And so you're trying to figure out, okay, how much do I need to save for bidding next time? Can I get what I want? Maybe I won't get what I want. Right? The bidding fluctuates back and forth. A really solid bidding game. That's my number 4. So we're moving on to the top 3. You've made it to the top 3. The top 3 of the community and myself. The community's got some great ones. One being Lords of Waterdeep. That's number 3. Lords of Waterdeep is sort of, I guess I refer to it always as baby's first worker placement, but you kind of feel like, or at least I have kind of always felt like it should be before 2012. Like, Lords of Waterdeep is such a good introduction to worker placement. It really is. I'll still play this game a ton. I like it at 2 players because you get a bunch of workers to use. At 5 players, you only get 2 workers to use, which feels so punishing, but it makes for a great different experience. You're going to be going out just basically getting cubes. The theme here does not matter. You have your fighters, your rogues, your clerics, and your wizards. Yeah, no you don't. You got orange, black, white, and purple cubes. And I'm going to get the purple cube, and I'm going to spend the purple cube, and I'm going to get some points for it. That's it. Lords of Waterdeep has one of the biggest mistakes I've made in board gaming, where you can complete a contract every turn, but I interpreted that as complete a contract every round. And so it made the mandatory quests so punishing. Like, I only played that maybe once or whatever, but it really made me know the value of reading the rulebook and checking and learning the nomenclature of what people are saying. It's just good. It's very simple. Put a worker out, get the stuff. No need to complicate it. But you're fighting for these contracts. You're fighting to put more buildings on the board so that if somebody goes there, you get a benefit. It's just good. If you haven't played Lords of Waterdeep, you need to. It's just like such a great example of worker placement. It just works. Moving along to my number 3, another 2012 game. This is a game that I probably wouldn't play at 2 players. Or if you do, I would take out the casino and the PR firm. And I'll say those things just so you know I know what I'm talking about. This is the game Suburbia. Suburbia scratches a sort of itch for me that I didn't know I had in terms of this city planning. But you're not really planning a city, you're essentially just matching icons and tile laying. It's a tile laying game where you have 3 different or 4 different types of tiles. Blue are commercial, yellow are things that cause pollution, and the goal of this game is to have the most population in your town at the end of it. Unlike the goal of living anywhere, where you want to go away in a hole and hide from all the noise and just have a little room to play board games in, this is the little population track. And the key here is that as your population grows, every time you cross one of these red lines, you must move your economy and your population growth down 1. So you're constantly getting these tiles into your board that will add different population or not as we can move in. So here you can see this gives you +1 to your economy and then +1 to your economy for each adjacent blue building, right? Here we have +1 to your population. But obviously nobody wants to go live in your friggin' city if you have a heavy factory right next door to a middle school. So that's why this heavy factory, although it produces you money, doesn't give people quality of life, and then they don't want to come to your city. And I really, really sort of appreciate that about the game. The tile laying is fun. Here's where you calculate your tracks. Up here, you can see this person is getting 15 income and is losing people from their city. You also have these goals which you're competing for against other players, and that you have yourself as well, like a secret goal. It also has one of my sort of favorite, I would call this a favorite mechanic in terms of a market. This market is one that gets cheaper as you go along. There was a picture of it, but maybe I'll get to a better one. Right here, if I can zoom in a bit. Every tile has a cost on it, but if you want to purchase tiles as soon as they come out, you're going to have to pay a lot more. And so you can see, especially in these games, you can see these tiles get closer and closer. One of the great parts about this is that you don't have to purchase these tiles. You can turn them into lakes. So you can deny, you can hate draft against people. You can take common tiles, these common residential areas, but you still have to discard a tile. It acts as the game's timer as it moves forward on and on. And I just really like matching the symbols and creating great patterns and trying to get a lovely little city going. Now, why I would remove the PR firm and the casino, they make it so that when you cross one of these red lines, that particular stat doesn't go down. So the PR firm means your population won't go down, and the casino means your money production won't go down. And so essentially, if you get those in a 2-player game, you win. Now, that's not that bad because your opponent can hate draft it or deny it, and you have that sort of give and take, but I just remove it. They just feel a bit overpowered. And the last time I played a 2-player game with somebody who hadn't played it before, it was not fun for them because I was like, great, I'm going to get that and win the game. So that's the downside of that. But other than that, I find it to be a really compelling, exciting game. That's my personal number 3. Moving on to number 2, I didn't expect this one to be there. I knew it would be on some people's list, but it in fact was on 5 lists, getting 26 points. That's Takenoko. Takenoko is a very fun game. Again, it's on the lighter side of things. I played this early on in the hobby as well. When did it come out? 2012? 2011. 2011. 13 years old, Takenoko. And the idea of Takenoko is that you're trying to grow bamboo for a panda to eat. You're going to lay down these, definitely not roads from Catan, but waterways stemming up from water to irrigate the land, to help flourish it and help it grow. And then you are trying to complete objectives in all of these ideas. You can complete objectives in the bamboo growth. Say, hey, there's this bamboo on the board. I want to score these points. You can complete objectives for pandas eating certain bamboo. And you can complete objectives for how the tiles are laid out. So you're all doing these different things to create the board and to create it flourishing. It's very easy and accessible. It's got pretty bright colors, beautiful pieces, just all in all around a very solid design. It's our number number 2 on the community list, and my personal number 2, also has to deal with farming. This one is also on the wall behind me. It is Agricola, which I'd pull out, but it's under a Grand Austria Hotel, so I'm not gonna. Agricola was my first introduction to Uwe Rosenberg. Agricola was my first introduction to the punishing idea of having to feed your people and not just letting these workers work for nothing. They work for free. They work for no food. That's not realistic. You know what is realistic? Discs representing your family members. You know what is realistic? That you have to have a room in your house, one for each person. Clearly, this was made before the current housing situation that we got going on. Oh, this is the non-pimped Agricola photo. Yeah, this one doesn't even have the sheeples, the meeples, the animeeples. That's fun. Instead of the family members, somebody's replaced with a Star Wars character. Let's use this as our photo. Agricola is a weird one, too. It's a worker placement game where you will have more workers as the game goes on, and you will have different spots where you can place your workers as the game goes on. You can see this board being laid out by all these people, but essentially as the game progresses, these cards are going to flip over and you're going to have access to new spaces that are good. In Uwe fashion as well, if nobody goes to a spot, the resources accrue. So, okay, you didn't want 2 wood? Well, now what about 4 wood? Nobody wants 4 wood? Okay, what about 6 wood? Somebody's going to go there eventually, and eventually it builds up, and it's timing out when you make those switches and when you don't. That is at the heart of the game. Also, everybody gets a hand of cards at the beginning of the game. You can draft this or you cannot, and this is what will determine your strategy. How many of these cards can you play? These will give you supremely powerful abilities, and they're all so different. And you're not going to get to play all of them. And so having these things, these elements, really make it cook for me. And now that now that I play more board games, I find that I can bang out a game of Agricola in like half an hour. 45 minutes, just see who gets the best score. It's a really lovely, dense game with a great decision space that can be played in a short amount of time. I still like it. I know that probably makes me basic, but I still like it. So we're going to move on to number 1 over on the community list. This is the edition that you have to love if we're talking about it now. It's Castles of Burgundy. It's been re-implemented by the Castles of Burgundy and also the Castles of Burgundy. Oh no, I wanted to get the deluxe edition. Neither of those are the deluxe editions. It's been re-implemented twice, in an anniversary edition in 2019 and in an even more anniversary edition, by Awakened Realms. But this is the game that I had, and it's just laying tiles down. You roll your 2 dice at the start of the turn, and then you can use those dice to either take tiles from the middle of the board, or put tiles that you've taken from the middle of the board onto your map. You've got a holding area where you have to wait to put them on. You'll put them there, and then you'll lay them onto the map. So if I got a 6, for example, I can put my castle on the 6. And then you have to expand out from where you start, because you all start with 1 castle, and that castle's name is Burgundy. This is the main board where you will draw things from. If you have a 1 dice, you can draw from here. If you have a 6 dice, you can draw from there, etc. So your whole point is everything gets you points, and you're trying to maximize those points. It's a very solid game, also a solid game to play on Board Game Arena. I mean, just look at the intensity here. It's solid when. It's really great to play on Board Game Arena, actually. A game will take you like half an hour at a 2-player game. And it's quite good at a 2-player game. All of you deluxified wackos out there are probably shaking in your boots. And I think the deluxification and that premium edition probably had a huge play in what made Castles of Burgundy appear on 7 different lists. But having a game that can appear on 7 lists is absolutely insane. Like, props must be given to Castles of Burgundy. I wonder how many people are going to rediscover Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was an honorable mention for me, but it didn't quite make the list because I haven't played Puerto Rico 1897, and I really would like to. I'd like to replace my copy with that, or see what this new version is going to be like, because I know Awakened Realms is doing it like they did the treatment to the Castles of Burgundy. But yeah, it's weird how people like this game, but maybe it's because there's nothing really quite like it. I haven't seen a lot of games use this idea, this dual dice drafting your dice determining your actions to do a bunch of things, the limited ways that you have to use those dice in such a wide variety of ways allows you to have flexibility. When you don't have that much dice manipulation, I mean, you have these workers, you can put them up or down, which I think is super important. And it's easy to get those workers, and you can just sacrifice a turn to get workers if like you can't do anything. And so it makes it like a really important currency. But I think the combos that you can pull off here, the free actions that you're trying to sort of eke out, and that if I roll a 6, I can do a bunch of different things with that 6. I can put things on my board with a 6. I can take things from the board with a 6. I can sell goods that have a 6 attributed to them, right? There's a number of different things that I think make Castle of Burgundy cook and tick and make people keep on coming back to it. So I think it's pretty cool that it's up there, and it is the #1 on the community pick. And I probably should have saved the community pick for last, but I'm saving myself for last. And this is a crossover of something that has appeared on the community list. It's the only thing that's on the community list, but I have just been falling in love with this game over and over. Every time I play it, every time I watch it, and if I had gotten my list in on time, this would have moved it up into 4th place, I think, if I've done the numbers right. Actually, I think it might have moved it into 3rd place, and it would be well deserved. So this is my personal #1, Raw. I've talked a lot about Raw when we already talked about it. It's so good. It's just so good. I just love it. I really do. I find the bidding to be so compelling. I find the poker aspect of it to be so compelling. Like sussing out your opponent, trying to bluff, trying to force people to take things that they don't want to, figuring out when to push your luck. I think everything about Raw is very, very exciting. Now we have some honorable mentions that I'm just going to run down. For my own personal honorable mentions, the list of my honorable mentions, it kind of goes... I have a few more that I would put on there. I would put Deus. I like Deus a lot. I like Orleans. I like Puerto Rico. I like Rococo. I like Sheriff of Nottingham. Those were kind of up there. I had Splendor and Coup up there as well, but it felt, you've probably heard of Splendor and Coup. And then for the, let's just leave it on Raw. Raw deserves it. You don't need to see my ugly mug. For the community as well, I'm going to run down the list. We have 108 entries of different people who have liked different games from the past. And tied at number 11, we have 7 Wonders in Orleans, so that would be a crossover. 13 was Robinson Crusoe, Adventures of the Cursed Island. And then 14 was like a 4-way tie where we had Dominion Survive, Escape from Atlantis, Sushi Go, Ticket to Ride. And then, oh, look at that. Istanbul's on there. Rococo's on there. Okay. For Sale, Telestrations. We're just going to blaze through them. Let me know if you hear your favorites, or more importantly, if you don't hear your favorites mentioned in this group of 100, drop those in the comments. Crokinole, yeah, I know people love Crokinole. I think it's fine. Bonanza, I think I might have already said that. Apples to Apples. Caverna, I prefer Agricola. Clue, the Great Museum Caper. That's a clue that isn't Clue and does look fun. Descent, Journeys in the Dark. Dungeon Pets, Settlers of Catan. Yeah, shout out to Catan. I'll still play Catan any day. Twilight Imperium, Hanabi. Hanabi was on my shortlist as well. Keyflower, Stratego, Android Netrunner, Dark Moon, Friday, Ghost Stories. Renee would be happy about that one. Glory to Rome, Pandemic, Power Grid, Stone Age, yeah, solid. Terra Mystica, Ascension, At the Gates of Loyang, Chaos in the Old World, Euphoria, I was just going to start to ramp up the speed, then I screwed up. Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia, Jamaica, Las Vegas, Star Wars Imperial Assault, Summoner Wars, Texas Showdown, Abyss, Eldritch Horror, Euchre, Hive, Mage Knight, Scrabble, Star Wars X-Wing, War of the Ring, Carcassonne, Dead of Winter, Discworld, Ankh-Morpork, Fields of Arl, Kanban, Modern Art, Innovation, Aquasphere, Ghost Fight and Treasure Hunters, Haggis. Nice, shout out to Haggis. I had never heard of Haggis, but I included it in the board game wrap, and that's how I know about it. High Society, great choice. Kemet, great choice. Pathfinder, Risk, Six Nymphs, Galaxy Trucker, Ginkgopolis, Pandemic the Cure, Werewolf in the Dark. Werewolf in the Dark. Ow, ow, ow! Werewolf in the Dark. Okay. Biblios, A Fake Artist Goes to New York, Dutch Blitz, Firefly the Game, Freedom the Underground Railroad, King of Tokyo, Small World, Zombicide, Clue, Dungeon Dice, Marrakesh, Rummikub, Categories, Shot and Totten, The Omega Virus, Three Kingdoms Redux, Agricola! Hey, Agricola got a little shout out there, although it was 10th on somebody's list. Balderdash, Better Than Nothing, Bananagrams, Bang, Black Fleet, Forbidden Desert, Hanamakoji, La Granja, Nexus Ops, Parcheesi, San Juan, Sentinels of the Multiverse, and at the very bottom, Sulkin, the Mayan calendar. So I might have had a little bit, being able to push these up a little bit, but I don't think I would have changed too much. But I did change our winner right above my head, Raw. Our winner. It wasn't even the winner. It would have made it number 3. It was my own personal number 1. I called it our winner. I'm in deathmatch mode, I think, because I'm talking so quickly. Anyway, drop your own if you missed it. Thanks so much for watching. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button because I'm desperate for your attention. And, you know, I might make you laugh one time, but that's the best I can give you. Thanks everybody for watching. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but I do have more games that are here that I brought. Tammany Hall, Chinatown. Those are 10 plus years. I brought them because people wanted to play them. Cryptid? When's Cryptid at? Oh, Cryptid's 2018. Cryptid's 2018. It's friggin' basically Cult of the New. Better slap myself across the face. I didn't realize it was so new. I figured with its design it was probably like 2005, but it's not, and it's good. Anyway, we don't get to talk about Cryptid. They don't even exist. Bigfoot's not real. It was just old Uncle Marty running to the outhouse. Yeah, I said it and I stand by it.